Coming up on The Arts Connection, we learn what's in store for the annual Fringe Festival.
We're just trying to promote an image of unity and peace and real talent out there.
Plus, the classic tale of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe comes to life on stage. And staging directors revive Sleeping Beauty, bringing back its 1890s choreography. All that and more just ahead on The Arts Connection.
The Arts Connection is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to WMFE from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to The Arts Connection, your program about all things creative here in Central Florida. I'm Cecily Wilson and we're joining you from the Shakespeare Theater where they're gearing up for the 17th annual Fringe Festival. Now this is one of the venues for the Fringe. Performers have been rehearsing here for weeks. The annual Fringe in Loch Haven Park in Orlando brings together totally unjurred, uncensored performances. Now, when you ask people how to describe the Fringe Festival, you get a lot of different answers, and no doubt that's in part because of the real diversity of performances. Kristen Kenning gives us a look at two local groups.
For some, it's about dance. For others, it's the drama. Two local performance groups, Cinedance and the Orlando Youth Theater, both completely different, but both preparing for one thing: Orlando's 17th annual Fringe Festival.
Fringe is major. Fringe is major. International, I mean, what else can you say?
The only competition whatsoever is there is a little bit of a competition to sell the most tickets. But even then, most of the shows are still concerned with, let's go in, let's do a great show, hope that everybody enjoys it.
I mean, you have 70 different groups who come in, visual art, theater, dance, etc. I mean, all kinds of art who come in from all over the world, really.
This year, Cinedance puts a spin on live dance, meshing jazz, ballet, and modern with cinema.
This year, we're collaborating with Florida Dance Theater, Associate Artistic Director Ferdinand De Jesus in the Silver venue in a show called Move.
Project Move is a fusion of different dance idioms, be they contemporary, modern, and ballet, and of course some edgy contemporary jazz idioms that come from Casey's background and my background.
Casey rocks the jazz moves, while Freddie clings to contemporary.
And what happened when we got together, it just became about what works, what doesn't, what can be enhanced, how can I enhance your work, how can you enhance my work. And some things we've just gotten in the studio together and said, what do we want to communicate?
Casey founded Cinedance in 2006 with a vision of introducing Orlando to concert jazz combined with cinema. This is the second year her professional group of dancers are taking the stage at the Fringe Fest, but they hope to get more than just exposure.
It's huge exposure. Not only that, but the spirit of Fringe itself is one of unity.
The dance world is so sort of spread out in Central Florida, and we're unifying, and I think that that's exciting. You know, it represents a community coming together, and when the dance community sees what we're doing, I think we're going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of people in the dance community.
At the other end of the spectrum, the Orlando Youth Theater opens its doors for a sneak peek inside rehearsals for their Fringe Spectacular.
You're in town, the place is, well, let's just say it's a place you'll hear people referring to a lot throughout this show.
We're doing the musical You're in Town, the musical.
For those who aren't familiar with the Broadway hit, You're in Town is about, well, public urination.
The musical deals with all of a sudden there's a water shortage and you have to pay to go to the bathroom. Your job is to act like you know exactly what you're doing. Our first thought was, being the Orlando Youth Theater, is it an appropriate show? And of course, all of the teenagers think it's a great show. And the more we started looking into it, there's nothing offensive about it. It's just pure fun.
The Orlando Youth Theater took shape in 1998 as an educational program for young performers ages 6 through 19 in Central Florida. While they might be the youngest Fringe participants, they still take it seriously.
It's a step up from saying that they're in school productions or they're in the youth theater productions. Instead, they're in a space or an event that has companies from all over the world come in and perform, and they're one of those. All of a sudden, they're performing with a lot of professionals.
As a young person, I know that not many of us get an opportunity to perform in it, so it's a special opportunity.
You know, it's the regular show. You have, all of a sudden, you've got, here's the performance date, here's when your dress rehearsal is, boom, you got to get ready.
Enjoy the show and welcome to Urinetown, the musical.
Now, as I mentioned, those are just 2 of the acts out of more than 60, and there's so much going on here. And of course, to help us fill it out and fill us in, here's Beth Marshall. She's the producer of the Fringe Festival. 17 years going strong. How did this all get started?
It started in 1992 when a man named Terry Olson, who's now one of our sponsors with the Orange County Division of Arts and Cultural Affairs, he began this whole idea here in Orlando. We've expanded throughout the years. We have 25,000 patrons. We have 3,000 artists, visual artists, kids fringe artists, 300 volunteers, 10 board members, and 40 staff.
There's so much going on here, as we mentioned, Beth. How does a person know where to go?
Well, you can start at orlandofringe.org. That's our website. We list all of our shows on there. There's little 30-word blurbs from each of them, pictures of the shows, past reviews.
Now, and in fact, some are rehearsing because it's been going on for a while.
That's right. We have tech rehearsal going on right now for our Patrons Pick winner for selling the most tickets at last year's festival. That's a group called Varieties. Their show this year is number 24, Doll Factory.
And what's that about?
It's a multimedia potpourri of art, performance art, drag, dance, music, and it's a general audience show.
You mentioned that it was uncensored, unjuried. What does that really mean?
Uncensored means that we do not control any of the content that the artists put on the stage. Unjuried means that we do not pick the artists that go on the stage. It's all a random lottery. In the past years, we've had emerging groups come. This year we have a group with Randy Productions doing a show called New Rochelle, just right over here in the Orlando Philharmonic space. They won a grant from Rollins College. We also have a group coming in from Austin called the Bric-a-Brac Vintage Vagabond Variety Show, which is a general ages show. Something for everyone, music, dance, puppetry, clowning.
And of course, Beth, there's the Kids Fringe.
Yes, there's the Kids Fringe. It's sponsored by Target. It is free to the public, all ages appropriate, out on the Loch Haven lawn from 10 to 4 on weekends, Saturday and Sunday.
And the visual?
Visual Fringe, also free to the public. It takes place right here on the gallery walls of the Orlando Shakespeare Theater and in the Patrons Round Room here at the Shakes. And all of the money from those art sales goes back to the artist 100%.
See, I told you, so much going on here. It runs through May 26th, and if you want to learn more about the Fringe Festival, simply check out our website. Now, even with the Fringe Festival going on, the Orlando Repertory Theater has its own production, bringing to life a delightful fantasy, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Kristen Kinney takes us behind the scenes for a special look.
The classic fairy tale, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, is lighting up the stage at the Orlando Repertory Theater. And the man responsible for bringing this fantasy to life is director Gary Codwalder.
Well, the show itself is very cinematic, the way it reads in the book, and that's what I loved about working on the show. It's very cinematic, and again, I mean, it's got battles, it's good versus evil.
Like the book, the play follows 4 children as they make their way through an attic wardrobe and into Narnia, a magical land of mythical creatures and talking animals.
What is it? We're not sure, but we think it belongs to a human.
But Narnia is not as enchanted as it seems. An evil witch rules the White Land, and it's the children who must battle the queen to victory. But let's rewind 30 minutes before they take the stage, where everything happens right back here.
Prior to the show, backstage, the actors are checking their props. They're making sure that everything is set for the show. The crew is helping checking with the props.
Right now, we're just checking the swords for nicks and bumps. Even though they're very dull, they've been grinded down so there's no edge. They still hit each other pretty hard with them.
It's these real swords the actors use in their fight scenes with the White Witch. Okay, I know you might be thinking, kids with swords? Might seem rather dangerous. So first thing that happens when the actors arrive is a fight call. This is where actor and fight choreographer Christopher Ryan takes them through the battle scenes so that no one gets hurt for real.
Teaching them the safety guidelines and then integrating it into the choreography, and then on top of that you have to make it look dangerous.
But it takes more than just a good fight scene to bring a story to life. This is where the cast heads next. Christopher Lindsay plays Mogram, the evil witch's accomplice, and it's the makeup, he says, that helps transform him into character.
If I didn't have this makeup, I don't think I'd be as intimidating, and I wouldn't get the googly eyes from kids that come up to ask for autographs.
Makeup and costumes, so vital in any show, take center stage in this one. But what's surprising is that this cast has only 20 minutes to make the transformation. How does this come to life here?
Okay, so what you do is you step in here in between. Ready?
Okay.
All right, and make sure you have the tail on either side of your feet. This goes around your waist. Your feet go into, can you see these straps right here? Yeah. So your feet go right into those straps right there, and that way you can control the legs. See, exactly. Right there around your feet, and that way when you walk, you can do that. Right, exactly. Now this little handle here moves the mouth. Here, this is heavy, so I'll hold this up so you don't have to.
Yeah, this is kind of heavy.
Yeah, it is kind of heavy.
Kind of strong.
Yeah, the actors support it from their waist.
While the beaver characters charm audiences with their cuddly appearance, Laura Hodo's evil witch costume just drips with sheer coldness.
Where are your brother and sisters right now?
I like the witch's costume. It's very diva, which she should be. The ice, the way that they are insinuating all the icy character with the whites and the blues, and her makeup that really brings it out.
Costume starts with the evil white unitard. Then the corset with the icicle skirt comes next, and it's bead tasticle. And one of the other nice things about these costumes are, these are not inexpensive, but they really wanted a certain fabulous look for these costumes. Then the collar of evil snaps back onto the back of it. And of course you must not forget the awesome starfish hat. And these under the lights look like icicles, but they're actually made of hot glue. And of course the best part of the costume is the fabulous cape. Yay!
And they've always said that the costume becomes the magic garment, that once you put it on, it's the final piece, that these are the clothes your character wears.
Showtime draws near. The transformation is almost complete. There's only moments left for those final touches.
We're at places. Places, please. We're at places.
The hard work you don't see is over with, so now the real work and the journey into Narnia can begin.
You can catch The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at the Orlando Repertory Theater through May 25th. And for you Narnia fans, the second movie, Prince Caspian, is due out this weekend. Well, here's another story well known as a movie, The Sleeping Beauty. Long before it was a 1959 Disney movie hit, it was a ballet. And the Orlando Ballet Company is closing out its season with this huge production. And a couple who knows the beauty of this fairy tale classic is staging the performance. And let me tell you, they don't call it classical for nothing. It's the ballet of all ballets, The Sleeping Beauty. This 19th century classic has been performed by dance companies around the globe, like the Ballet West Company in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's been polished and smoothed away of minor imperfections to provide a glittering setting for Aurora and her prince. And now the Orlando Ballet Company is bringing this magical production to its stage. The company has teamed with Denise Schultz, who once danced with the British Royal Ballet.
I danced this ballet way back in 1963, also staged, or we called it produced in South Africa, staged by someone who'd come from Great Britain.
And her husband, Louis Godfrey, to stage the performance.
Staging the ballet is actually putting the whole thing together from the start. Teaching the steps, rehearsing it, putting it on the stage, in the set, lighting it, getting the orchestra with the dancers with the orchestra. That's what staging really is.
It's no easy task to maintain the integrity of a great classical ballet and the excitement it originally inspired.
Choreography has been set since 1890 for this particular ballet. There have been some changes and little additions and little pieces taken out. But basically it's the same choreography that they used way back then.
Unlike modern-day choreographers who do their own interpretation, Denise and Louis prefer to stick with the original.
It is important for young dancers to know the historical side of their art, the tradition behind it, and it is a wonderful vehicle for people to dance classical ballet.
It's their goal to stay as true to the classics as possible.
Between 1917 and 1919, a very famous Russian ballet master called Nikolai Sergeyev came to the West from St. Petersburg and brought with him notations of the Russian productions of all the big ballets, this one being one of them.
Who knows what actually happened many, many years ago. But the story is a very famous fairy tale story, and the music is written by Tchaikovsky, was written especially for the ballet. And in the piano score, there are all notes about exactly what should be happening at a particular time.
Godfrey says the Sleeping Beauty offers difficult technical challenges for all of the dancers. Each movement or technique is very clearly laid down, from where the legs and feet have to be.
They need to stay long, they need to be stretched, they need to be pulled up, and they need to be turned out. A turned out position is a prettier position than a turned in one. It's also much stronger.
To where the arms have to be.
Classically, we would go from here to here, and we would open it and bring it down, or we would take two together, or we would take two together, getting to those beautiful lines at the end. From the classical thing, you would always lead with the top of the hand or the back of the hand, never with the elbow or the shoulders.
Nowhere are those challenges more front and center than in the performance required of the dancer playing the Sleeping Beauty herself, Chiaki Yasukawa. But she insists on staying true to form.
I really want to respect that choreography and the music, so I don't want to change anything. And especially Denise and Louis, they are so particularly very following the pure classical choreography or anything. They don't want to change. They have this and we have to follow this.
And with much practice, she's able to make the technically difficult look graceful and easy. Now, if you think that's beautiful, nothing evokes the beauty and magic of dance more than the costumes.
These costumes from Salt Lake City were designed by Peter Kazalek.
Jacqueline Bryce is the wardrobe supervisor for the Ballet West Company in Salt Lake City, Utah. She was brought in to handle the monumental task of managing all the costumes.
It's one of our largest productions. It's even bigger than our Nutcracker. We have a shipping crates, which we call standards. We have 13 standards carrying costumes, 3 tall crates carrying the court costumes. We have 6 wig crates that carry 16 wigs in each crate. We have 2 boxes of shoes and boots.
Bryce says many of the costumes were designed for a 1988 Ballet West performance. It's her job to ensure that they too stay true to the classical ballet.
The Aurora and the Fairy tutus are what we call a classical tutu, and it works with the choreography. It helps to tell the story, it creates the magic on stage, and it's a storybook ballet, so you want magic on stage. So you have the dancing, you have the music, and you have the beautiful visuals.
Then what you have is
finished product we hope is going to be absolutely beautiful and pleasing to everybody. and comfortable for the dancers.
And in the magical fairy kingdom, Princess Aurora and her prince live happily ever after. And of course, long before The Sleeping Beauty was a ballet or a movie, it was a book, a fairy tale classic written way back in the 1600s. Well, a modern day author is turning her book into a documentary. When Irene Zabitko of Orlando learned of elderly women returning to their homes near Chernobyl, the site of a nuclear accident, she wanted to know more.
Marusha's house was a few yards down the road from the Matrenko home. She walked more slowly than she had before.
It's considered the world's worst nuclear power accident.
On the way, she noticed that many of her neighbors had left their laundry out to dry, clothing stiff now, like petrified corpses swinging from a hangman's rope.
In 1986, a huge explosion rocked reactor number 4 in Chernobyl, sending clouds of radioactive particles across the country, leaving the town of Chernobyl lifeless.
She wailed and continued genuflecting, but her house was still standing. And even though she knew that somehow God had cursed her land, she grabbed a handful of soil and kissed it and rubbed it over her hands and face.
From the pages of her book, The Sky Unwashed, author Irene Zabitko tells the story about elderly women who came back to their village after the explosion.
The village of Opachichi, before the nuclear power plant explosion, had 500 families. Now there is only 13 people, most of them women. I'm Ukrainian. I have a connection there. My parents come from there. And I've always been interested in Ukrainian history, especially during Soviet times. When I read this article initially about these older women coming back to their irradiated villages, I thought to myself, my goodness, why would anybody do that?
That lingering question inspired Zabitko to do more than just write about these women she had become familiar with.
And I decided, my goodness, what an interesting idea to actually go and meet these women that I wrote about and to see how close, if I did or not, capture who they are in my novel.
Ripped from the pages of her novel and a real-life catastrophe, Zabitko set out to capture the lives of people living in this so-called dead zone, but this time on film.
Many, people wanted to come, I won't say who, but some major people actually wanted to do the film version of it. And I was very open to it. But like most people who are approached, writers, we wait and we think it's going to happen, and it doesn't.
With little knowledge of how to make a film, but with great determination, she set out to make it happen.
I love movies, I do. And in fact, if I wasn't a writer, I probably would have gone to film school instead.
Zabitko took on the challenge to make her first documentary titled Epiphany at Chernobyl. She applied for a grant and secured funds for travel.
I think it's a hard process. I think it's very hard because you do have to have quite a bit of money. You can't really make a documentary if you're going to be serious about it for under $100,000. I mean, for an hour-long feature.
And of course, you can't make a documentary without a filmmaker. Irene enlisted a former colleague.
Well, the art is having a great filmmaker, a guy who's visual. Peter Michałowicz has that. If he didn't, I wouldn't, have him come with me. He just has a great visual eye. And I told him, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, but he was the one that turned it into magic.
She wanted the world to hear about these women whose lives had been destroyed.
It's still a problem. They haven't covered it. The nuclear power plant is still exposed. There's radiation leaking there. It's still a major hazard. Children are being born with thyroid problems, heart problems, and yet people are living there and they're surviving.
As a writer, Zabitko had to tell her story by using a visual art form.
It's quite a different way for me to be thinking. Although I tend to write visually in my stories, it's a whole other way of transposing it to the screen. I don't know how you learn that. I think you just do it. Peter did a great job of getting them on film. My feeling is that if you have something that's worthy, people will come to your aid, whether you know what you're doing or not. And this was my case. This is the monument. It's supposed to reflect the destruction. The thing about documentaries, it is spontaneous. You can write a script to a point, but once you're there, anything could happen. And that's also, I think, the excitement of it.
She recalls a moment when one of the women she met invited them into her 2-room home.
In the second room, we saw a big, flat screen television. And she has a remote. She's showing us her shows, and she stops at a Mexican soap opera. It's very big in Ukraine. And she's looking at it, and she's saying, oh, these people have so much trouble. So you just never know. I couldn't have scripted that better.
Viewers are able to gain a rare glimpse into this radioactive ghost town that has become an unlikely sanctuary for people to reestablish their lives.
It inspires me to realize that people are resilient, that they can always find a way, that they have this belief that something better will come along. And if it's not going to come along, then they're happy with whatever they have.
Zabitko says she's able to complete her documentary simply because of passion.
You know, I have the passion for my writing, I have the passion for film, I have the passion for the documentary, I have the passion for the subject, I have the passion for these women.
Now, almost 2 decades after the explosion, Zabitko's film short will premiere in the Ukraine this summer, and she hopes at a theater near you. What a powerful story. Irene Zabitko plans on returning to the Ukraine to complete her documentary in 2008. Well, that wraps it for us here on The Arts Connection. We certainly hope you have enjoyed our program. Don't forget to check us out on the web at wmfe.org/arts. View the podcast there, send us your ideas, or get information about any of the stories that you've just seen. And don't forget, we have Becky Morgan. She's on the radio with the Arts Connection radio program, 90.7 FM on your radio dial. Until next week, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye. She's one of Orlando's most fashionable donors to the arts, and now Harriet Lake is opening up her closet for an exhibition.
By 18, when I went away to school, I remember going in a huge truck filled with clothes.
Plus, find out what it takes to bring a production to the stage through the eyes of a female playwright.
You go to the theater, you want to see part of your life. You want to see some of you reflected back to you.
All that and more right here on The Arts Connection on WMFE TV.